What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the DFSArmy Bold Calls Fantasy Football Podcast. It is the beginning of draft season, very early draft season. And we're here today to discuss the QB rankings as part of our DFSArmy draft kit that is dripping out, coming out every day. More stuff being added. Here, we're late May. By June 1st, pretty much, most of the stuff will be populated, and we will continue to update everything as the season goes on. Now, these are the same QB rankings, Says, that last year...
Oh, hi. How you doing?
What's up, Says?
You forgot to introduce me to the audience.
I got my partner in crime. We've been talking for so long, I forgot to intro you, man. How you doing?
Right. I mean, people are hearing this on the audio cast. They think you're doing a solo pod. They've already clicked off.
Yeah, well, no one wants to hear me. I'm just the looks and the I'm just the looks here. You're the talent. So So this is the same QB ranking that last year got every one of you who was watching onto names like Lamar Jackson, onto names like Josh Allen, onto names like Dak Prescott, who we were way higher on last year.
Fading names like Baker Mayfield at ADP.
Ahead of those guys last year who were going. So while the DFS, while the fantasy world was zigging, we were zagging. And for me, I'm going to tell you, a lot of people downplay QB rankings. Like, even my first thought when we were doing this was like, QB rankings, wah, right? That was my first thought. I'm like, every other position is more interesting. But realistically, I'm going to tell you that I won about 60% of the leagues I was in last season. And a big reason why, especially for my 2 QB leagues, was because I wound up with Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott pretty much in every one, because we had them ranked so much higher than everyone else. So how did that work out for you last year, Says?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what you just said, it's identifying that guy that you can get as the late QB that won't just hold the foot. You hear so many times like, hey, late QB, punt QB, get all the other position, fill it in with a combination of Kirk Cousins and Ben Roethlisberger. That's fine, but you really do have to hit at those other positions. If you can identify and really target that quarterback that is league winning, then that makes a difference. It was Lamar Jackson last year. It was Patrick Mahomes the year before. And again, we don't know who it's going to be, but we could take pretty good shots at the board. But I think the days of wait on QB have become a little bit obsolete. And we're going to talk about that because Lamar Jackson basically broke that last year. I mean, if you're taking Lamar Jackson early this year, like if he falls to like the 3rd or even 4th round, which I haven't seen happen too much, why the hell are we going to wait on QB? Why not just take the guy that can win us our league? So I think some of the conventional 1 QB start 1 leagues, the rules are changing a little bit, and that's what we need to discuss today.
Do you want to hear something crazy? I saw a draft board just yesterday on Twitter. Somebody had posted it. Maybe it was you. Of one of the NFFC $300 entry drafts. And you know who went in the first round? Yeah. 2, not 1, 2 quarterbacks.
Well, it makes sense because think about this. Like right now by ADP, you know who's going at pick 12 in the first round? It's Aaron Jones. We've had a discussion on Aaron Jones. You said do not draft him. So if you're on the clock and you're like, I need to get my running backs because they dry up, or I could just take a guy that's going to score me 25 fantasy points a week. I mean, even though conventional wisdom says don't do that, the sharper players are saying, you know what, let me just get fantasy points. I'm going to find a running back in the 5th round that ends up panning out.
I don't know if those are the sharper players. We'll find out. The sharper player to me, and this is what I hope we're going to focus on here. To me, the sharper player will figure out who that quarterback is later that you can draft whose ADP is incorrect based on what they have the potential to produce. And I do believe that there are some gems like that floating around. Like last year, again, I'm all about value. And last year, the reason we were winning those leagues is because when everybody had Jackson ranked 9th or 10th.
They had him like 13th and 15th. His ADP did not get into the top 10.
Not even top 10, right? And Josh Allen, very similar. So we were able to wait until the 5th, 6th, 7th round in certain leagues, even in 2 QB leagues, get those guys a little bit later. So, but in your regular league, you were able to wait on QB and still land a guy who was going to produce 25 plus fantasy points a week. And that's what you want. So without further ado, the QB position, very important. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at Sez's rankings right now, because they are live. Essentially our rankings, because we'll disagree, but we agree on a lot of these things, and we're going to.
These are the DFS Army. These are my DFS Army rankings. Your DFS Army rankings will follow in the next few weeks, and then we will have a composite ranking where, when you subscribe to our draft kit, you'll be able to sort by Geek's rankings. If you want to follow his, if you want to follow mine, you can do by Sez's rankings, or if you'd like a composite, which is a simple average of the two. And then we'll also have ADP right next to it, so you can see where we deviate.
That's
simple.
The key to everything, understanding the value against ADP. So let's jump right into it. Top of the leaderboard is pretty simple. I think
so that's how you want to do it. You want to do it. You don't want to do it by outlier. You want to just do it by.
No, first we got to start and just get through. Let's get through the easy ones that.
Well, don't give away too much here. You want them to, just pick the spots where you want to question me, because if you're going to give it all out right here, nobody's going to come check out the draft kit.
Well, there's a lot more going on in the draft kit. There's notes, but also I do want to listen. I think the top of the leaderboard is fairly simple. You're making a decision between Pat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. It's that simple, right?
So I don't think anyone disagrees that those two are the top two QBs. We're not going to break ground and become podcast of the year by talking about Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes as the top two. The question really is, when are you prepared to strike in one QB leagues with those guys? So that's my question to you. One QB league, high stakes league, your pride's on the line, your money's on the line. Where are you comfortable taking these guys? Is it at the end of the first, like you saw in the NFFC? Is it the middle of the second? Is it any time in the second? So that's really, yes, full disclosure. Those are my two top QBs. Pick which one you want first. Where do you take them, Geek?
I see where they're going, and I don't like it. So I do see they're going as early as the end of the first round.
But their ADP, okay, go with their ADP though. Their ADP is not that. Their ADP is right now is respectively is pick 20 and 25. So Lamar's going 3 picks before. He's going 2.4. And Pat Mahomes is going right on the turn. He's going 3.1.
I think that if I'm late in the second round, let's say I had the number 1 pick, and I take Christian McCaffrey, or the number 2 pick, and I take Saquon Barkley, and now it comes back around to me in the second round, and Lamar Jackson is still hanging out. And I'm making a decision between like a Lamar Jackson and, maybe someone like Mike Evans or Kenny Galladay or Amari Cooper, that group of players, maybe a running back like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and that type of group. I think I would go, if Lamar Jackson was still hanging out, I think I'm taking Lamar there, and then hoping that I'll get, a stud player in the third round early, and just running my draft that way. I'd be pretty happy with an early pick this year if I could get McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson, and let's say another pick, on that turn. That's a perfect scenario for me.
Yeah, for me, I've made a pretty simple rule here. And I've done the different. I've done it different ways. But I've taken Lamar in the second. I've taken Pat Mahomes in the early third. But here's my basic rule of thumb. I want either one of these guys at any point in the third round. So I'm probably not going to take them anytime in the second round, even though they're worth it, because I know that I'm the next 2 QBs on my list, Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray, 3 and 4 respectively. If I miss out on the 2 stars in the third, I'm okay getting those other guys at ADP. So the rule I've made in drafts are important to me. I'm being disciplined in the second. Anytime in the third that one of them fall to me, I'm clicking yes.
I'm totally fine with that. And what are the ADPs right now for Murray and Dak? Because I don't think those two are that far behind.
Well, yes, they're actually significantly behind as far as ADP. So in our rankings, Kyler Murray is 3, Dak is 4. But when you talk about actual ADP, Murray, who's the next QB off the board, doesn't go until the middle of the 5th round, and Dak goes at the end of the 5th round. So
perfectly fine and acceptable. And by the way,
wait, are you in on those guys there though, or at that point are you going to continue to wait?
I have Dak ahead of Kyler, but
me too.
Yeah. So but yes, I'm definitely in on that. And by the way, you're not doing too bad if you got Josh Allen. I do think next. And I do think that's where the drop off happens. So
okay, so remember, you're talking Josh Allen. I have him at 5 in my rankings. Deshaun Watson at 6, but ADP does not. ADP has Russell Wilson at 5 and Deshaun Watson at 6. And Josh Allen.
I've warned everybody here year after year after year that the ADP and the consensus on Russell Wilson is wrong. I've had him in my dynasty league since he was a rookie. I've lived and died with this kid. I love him, but his style of play is not conducive to scoring every single week. He's very up and down. The team will run the football. It does look good for Seahawks throwing a lot this year. They've added some weapons, and more importantly, their running back situation's not as great as maybe it looked the last couple of years. So it could be an up year for Russell Wilson in terms of his production, but he's on a team that will run it when they can. They will play conservative when they can. And when that team is winning the game, you're going to get 12-point games out of Russell Wilson way too often. And some of these other guys almost never produce a 12-pointer. They almost never dud. Wilson will have monster games because he has that type of talent. But no, he's definitely not a guy that anybody should be reaching for. And Russell Wilson, to me, is interchangeable with pretty much a pile of guys that I would never take him early. He is not a quarterback that you should be wasting a pick on early. I'm sorry, haters. Don't hate me.
Hate him. I don't think anyone's gonna hate you, and I think that it's perfectly reasonable. And Russell Wilson, I think, goes a little earlier on name recognition, and he does have the spikes, meaning the big weeks. So it's often you forget once if you're done dirty for 2 weeks with 12-point games, and all of a sudden he gives you a 40 and wins you an important week. All is forgiven. But once you're in that part of the QB rankings, you want consistency with spikes. And I think that's what, we agree, Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, guys like that. Even Deshaun Watson has those, where at least even without DeAndre Hopkins, we think the floor is probably like 17, 18 fantasy points because he's so good.
What's the worst thing? All right.
You agree with that, though, with Deshaun Watson?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, what's the worst thing? And this is important. The worst thing that happens when you're rolling your fantasy league is your quarterback is going. It's Monday night. You're down by 13 points. You're like, I fucking got this. The meter bar reads 98% you're going to win. Okay? You need to have a quarterback that you can lock in for 20 points. I've got this shit. And then you get Russell Wilson. He puts up 7 because they run it with Chris fucking Carson every play. He doesn't do shit the whole game, and you lose your week. This happens a lot with Wilson. If you look at his returns, they're going to be 44s.
Here's
and then there's going to be a 7, a 12, a 13, an 8. This is crazy.
He almost behaves like Russell Wilson's fantasy scores are almost that of like a wide receiver, and you almost don't mind it with a wide receiver. You almost expect it with a wide receiver. You don't expect it with your quarterback. Here's the good news, Geek and DFSArmy, that you're never going to have to worry about it. It's never going to be a decision point for you, because if you follow our rankings, he is going to go off the board way earlier when you're picking your premium tight end, when you're picking your running back 3. Someone is going to do you the favor, and they're going to take Russell Wilson. So it's not even a problem.
Unless you're in a league with other DFSArmy members, and then they're all going to know.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. If we're all off the same cheat, I'm even going to say this. Even in a league like that, when it's all family, all DFSArmy members, there's still a guy that is from Seattle, that Seahawks are his favorite team. It still happens. We've seen it every year. It's not going to change this year. And especially with the narrative that you just identified, that the Seahawks are earmarked to throw a little bit more because of because Rashad Penny's hurt? That's why they're going to throw more? They just signed Carlos Hyde, who, whether we like it or not, had the best year of his career last year and should not be good, but stabilize the running attack to get them the 3.5 yards that they're so desired to look for.
He's exactly the kind of guy. I hate Pete Carroll.
But I'm just saying, it's like this narrative is developing based on Rashad Penny being out for the first 8 games.
Ridiculous. Rashad Penny doesn't do shit anyway. Right. So we all agree we like Russell Wilson less than the field. And what I would tell you is, beyond like a Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson normally would be a difference maker, but because they didn't give him any wide receiver talent to throw,
he's so good though. He's good.
That good, but listen. It's hard to get beyond the fact that you lose the best wide receiver or one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and you replace him with a guy who's just been a massive disappointment. And
well, let me ask you this.
Himself, like Brandon Cooks is just disappointing. And then Mr. Hammy himself, Will Fuller, I mean, stretch it out, brother. Stretch it.
Well, we agree that Will Fuller is an elite wide receiver. When on the field, he's just unhealthy. And then Brandon Cooks has actually been good. He's just, the concussions is the problem. And then whether we like him as a fantasy player or not, Randall Cobb, who they signed, is a capable pass catcher. I'm not saying he's an elite option. He's someone that you could put on the field and he's going to, get pass splitted. They have a couple tight ends there. One for the red zone, Darren Fells, and Jordan Thomas looks to be, entering that third year, very athletic. They have pass catchers. Kenny Stills is still there. He's a capable receiver. I think that normally we talk about receivers, as long as they have like an average QB or someone capable of supporting the passing game, they're going to be okay. I think this is the opposite. Deshaun Watson's so good. He is like the Julio Jones of quarterbacks, or the Michael Thomas of quarterbacks that need just something that's just professional receivers. As long as it doesn't have like the Patriots receiving core from last year, he's fine.
Now, who's manning the running back position for the Texans?
Your boy David Johnson and Duke Johnson, the Johnson brothers, Johnson and Johnson.
What does that tell you about how they're going to score their touchdowns?
They're going to pass.
They're going to have to pass because Duke does not run up the middle. He's a pass catcher. And now, there's an argument in the DFS community that he can run up the middle, but he hasn't done it.
Yeah.
And we know that David Johnson can't run up the middle. He's just a pass catcher. So, and we also know that Houston doesn't like throwing to the running back, which makes the whole thing fucking weird. But nonetheless, they're going to have to throw for tutties. So Deshaun Watson definitely.
All right, well, let me ask you this. So, because I'm fixing my rankings on the fly. You hate Russell Wilson. I have Deshaun Watson at 6 and Russell Wilson at 7. Would you flop them, or would you rather have Russell Wilson over Deshaun Watson? Who would you rather have?
Oh, no. I want Deshaun Watson over Russell Wilson.
Oh, wait, one more.
Daniel Jones over Russell Wilson.
Wow. And then I have Russell Wilson
at Wentz over Russell Wilson.
Okay. So
actually, Carson Wentz is just as volatile.
Okay, cool.
So let's take a look at ADP. I'm just going to really quick take a look at the QB ADP data, and I'm trying to see where some of these.
I'm higher on Daniel Jones than ADP. I have Daniel Jones at QB 9, ahead of Aaron Rodgers, and I think ADP has him out of the top 12 at QB 13.
I'll give you the biggest surprise that I see in ADP, or a couple of big surprises
versus my rankings,
versus your rankings, and just overall. Tom Brady. Now, he's going, his ADP right now, and Drew Brees. Drew Brees is going 8th. Tom Brady is going 9th in ADP. And I think Tom Brady's the biggest shocker for me. Let's see where you have Brady here. You have him 19th overall, so you are very low on Tom Brady. Whereas ADP loves Tom Brady. 9th overall, they're saying, hey, this is a better version of Jameis Winston. Winston did amazing in this offense. They're going to finally unleash the cannon of Brady. He's going to, he's got the reins of Belichick off of him, and he's going to go bananas out there, throwing for tutties, 50 touchdowns this year. Peyton Manning, when he went to the Broncos, the first year where he went crazy and just threw touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. We drafted him in the first round the next year. He fell off. He sucked. Went to the Super Bowl, won it. Couldn't throw a pass. It was really weird. Is Tom Brady the new Peyton Manning to the Broncos, 50 touchdowns on the Bucs? And are we crazy for not moving him up the ranks and assuming that he's going to have this rejuvenated thing going on here? Because that's what the ADP is saying says.
Yeah, so Brady, he's again one of these guys that's going on name recognition in some of these early drafts high. Now, presumably, they're going to be better, the Bucs. I mean, they've upgraded their. For Brady, this is going to be great. He's upgraded all his weapons. He has Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. They added Gronk, right? They have, they have other capable pass catchers. The problem is that no one's more of a chemistry guy than Brady. And let's face it, the guy's 43 years old. It's got to go off the cliff at some point. Even if it's not going off the cliff, it didn't look great last year. I'm not willing to, and I agree that Chris Godwin will be supported. It will be kind of his Julian Edelman. That's a popular narrative. That's right. Chris Godwin's route tree coincides well with Tom Brady's skill set. Underneath, short passes, a guy that he could trust, that's sure-handed. Now, I think it's a commonly, widely accepted narrative also that Mike Evans, with his skill set, deep balls, contested catches, might see a little bit loss of value. It doesn't mean he's not going to be good, just maybe not as good as he would have been with Jameis Winston. That said, it's also a new team, a new system. There's new entrances to the stadium. Brady is, he's for 20 years, he's worked in the same place. He goes through the same door. Everything's a little different for fantasy purposes. And I'm not saying the Bucs won't be a good team or better under Tom Brady versus Jameis Winston, but I just think that there's going to be an adjustment period and people are going to be disappointed for fantasy. Even if it's for the first 5 or 6 games, if you're relying on Brady, that's a problem. I could see him having a good second half of the year, but other than Chris Godwin, I'm fading Brady. Now, there's people that are in on him. There's people that are fading him. Again, if you're going to follow my rankings, you're probably not going to get him. I have him at 19.
I'll make a little counterpoint. Just a little counterpoint. The biggest problem with Brady has always been he doesn't get you anything with his legs. So It's 100% throwing for touchdowns.
That's my point. And I want to let you make your point, but if you're banking on Brady to be a top 10 QB, he needs 5,000 yards and he needs 38 touchdowns. He needs that because he's getting 0 with his legs.
He needs to do a ton with his arm. Now, the counterpoint is the Bucs do not have a prolific running game, or at least they haven't had one up till now. I think maybe where people are going wrong is like maybe under a quarterback like Brady, who can read a defense and check down and is often it's hard to know if it's his proclivity to check down to a running back or if that's just the offense they ran in New England. But they always were very disciplined about, hey, if they're showing us run, we're going to run it. If they're showing us pass, we're going to pass it. Like they were that way. So does Brady being there change the Tampa offense to a more run-heavy approach? If so, then yes, this prediction will come true. Brady will not probably make the value that we're really looking for. But if it's one of these things where the Bucs are like, no, we don't like to fucking run it, and Brady's like, good, because I'm fucking sick of not throwing it. I'm better than the running back. My arm is better than the running back, and I'm more accurate than Jameis Winston, and I read a defense way better than Jameis Winston ever did.
I mean, that's his superpower. That's Brady's superpower, is the pre-snap.
It is. So in that, we could see Peyton Manning year 1 with the Broncos. We could see a 36-plus touchdown season.
Hold on. Are you discounting that? Because when Peyton Manning went to the Broncos, he was 37, okay? He might have been 36. It was probably 37. Tom Brady's 43.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because Peyton's fall off in athleticism happened the next year, right? So his second year, he was literally incapable of delivering the football. Like, it's just the athleticism. We think Brady still had it. He looked pretty good last year throwing
40,
football.
Not 40. 40.
He's very old.
He's going to be 44.
Well, it's certainly hard to imagine that he's going to start running it, that he's going to be more athletic. But again, if they let him throw a lot, I think his accuracy was still there and his deep ball was still there last year. He had remember the last couple of years, he has had no talent at the wide receiver position. He's making guys like Philip Dorsett into touchdown scores because there's no one there. So this time he's got a fucking crew around him that's very, very good. So, I mean, I understand. Listen, when you've got Godwin, Gronk, Evans, you've got a team around you of pass catchers that could make you look better. So I understand why people are taking him. I do think he'll have a better fantasy season than he's had in the last few years. And we've seen Brady, when he's on, put up those 25s, put up those.
Right, I'll give you one. Brady or Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, see, this is a good. I like Mayfield better.
Okay, hold on. Let's stick with this. A healthy Matt Stafford, who's healthy by all accounts, who was crushing last year, who I just moved up my ranks to 12 overall. Stafford or Brady?
Yeah, I'm going with Stafford if he's healthy. Okay, but I do think that Stafford is an extreme risk of back injury.
Right, but if you take Stafford early for his upside, you could always come back and cuff him with in 2 QB
There's
leagues.
none of this.
Sam Darnold
We're talking 2 QB now. All right, so let's get into this.
And 2 QB.
Yeah, because these are all guys that I'm like taking in the 10th round, 11. Here's the thing with Brady, his ADP. I'm not reaching for Brady. If I'm in a redraft league, and if we've gone beyond basically Dak Prescott.
Well, hold on a second. You're going to have to reach for Brady if you want him. He's going as the QB8 in the NFFC right now.
Then he won't be on my team.
Well, that's my point.
That's
Now you've made my point for me.
Yeah.
You of course you're willing to gamble because the situation's good and the weapons are good. Yeah, I would love to gamble at QB 13 also for him. But you know what? If you're going to have to take him, if in the 7th round where he's going, it's not. That's what people are doing. They're saying, "Hey, I'm going to forego my starting wide receiver 3 for Tom Brady. I'm going to forego getting Will Fuller, Deontay Johnson, or whatever wide receiver 3 you want to get Tom Brady." It's just not willing to do it. That's all I'm trying to tell you here.
That I agree with 100%. I was just making a counterpoint that I do think Brady can have a better year than he's had.
Sure, I'll agree with you, but just not in the 7th round.
Having is QB 18 type seasons, so it's not a far path to a better year than that. Another guy. All right, so let's move on from that because we are both in agreement. Drew Brees, I like a little bit more. I don't mind Drew Brees where he's going in that top 12. By the way,
right. Yeah, I have him buried. You
buried him. I believe that the Saints are getting away from the run-heavy approach that they used. We saw a little bit of that last year when Ingram wasn't there. They really didn't do the same run-heavy approach that they had done when they were trying to get Ingram and Kamara the football. Kamara's still out there, and he's still a supreme talent, and he's still a massive threat to steal the tutties. The Saints defense is going to be very good when they're at home. That's just what they do. They stop the run. They're a good defensive team for whatever reason on occasion. Sometimes they're not. It's a weird team. But I think the addition of Emmanuel Sanders there, finally giving a second option that's like of a quality pass catcher for Brees. And then, they're going to throw to Mike Thomas 13, 14 times a game. And of course, you could throw to Kamara, and they just throw to their crew of ne'er-do-wells. As well, I think Brees is certainly a fine pick for right around that, right around where he's going, 10th, 11th, that range. I'm fine with it. 12th, 13th.
All right, well,
end up with him though, because again, name recognition is pushing him in ADP a little bit higher than what I would be.
Okay, so you want me to give my explanation of why I put him at QB 17?
Yeah.
All right, so the last 3 seasons, the 2017, 18, and 19 season, the Saints, as far as where they rank in pass attempts per game for the whole season, 18, 19, and 21. So they're in the bottom half of the league in pass attempts, which means they are running more. And they're running more. Then when they get down to the goal line, there was a time 5 years ago where you'd get that Brees sneak. You can count on 2.5 rushing touchdowns for him. That's all gone away. That's Taysom Hill now. Also, what they'll do is some basically about 6 or 7 touchdowns that would be Breeze's are coming off the board, and then they're a run-heavy attack. Now, I agree. In a yard situation, Drew Brees looks like he hasn't lost it. He's accurate. He's good. But for fantasy, the guy doesn't run at all. He's statuesque like Brady. And I think he's still going to be a good quarterback. But just what I've seen over the last 2 seasons and in the playoff runs where Taysom Hill gets put in, and they paid Taysom Hill. They gave him $16 million to stay with them for a couple of years. They signed Jameis Winston. Brees, he was dinged up for a few games last year. I just think, and again, I like Drew Brees, just like you said, for all the reasons you identified. I don't disagree with anything except the ADP. I just think in that range where you have to take Drew Brees. Drew Brees right now in the NFFC ADP, he is going as QB8, right? The guys that are going after him that I'd rather have Carson Wentz at 11, Aaron Rodgers is the QB 12. Obviously, Daniel Jones is 13 and Stafford 14, Baker Mayfield 15. Baker Mayfield's right where I draw the line, but those 4 that I said right above him, Wentz, Rodgers, Jones, Stafford, I would take ahead of him. So again, I like Brees for all the reasons you said, but for all the reasons I just identified, I can't take him inside the top 10 in 1 QB leagues.
I'm down with what you're saying. And those names, especially Daniel Jones, I mean, some of these ADPs in the NFFC tells me there's a lot of edge to be had in the NFFC in general, in high stakes fantasy football because the picks that are being made here, and this I do actually think this stuff levels out.
Yeah, of course.
As we get closer to the season.
Any lines that level out. So if you make a bet now on any of the sports books for any prop or any line, if you see value now, it's gonna get massaged out as the public gets more and more into it. Now, I've heard people bury Daniel Jones. Now we like him. We think he's a top 10 QB as far as for fantasy, but people have said that the Giants' the first 5 games are murder's row, and that they could see Daniel Jones going off to a horrible start, and that he could end up on waiver wires. I've seen that narrative surface too. Again, I saw enough. I know you saw enough from Daniel Jones with the dual threat, with the weapons he has. And listen, it's a new system. It's Jason Garrett, but my answer to that was he produced the top 5 season for Dak a couple of years in a row. So
listen, we want quarterbacks that can run. I can't stress this enough. If I'm paying anything beyond just a late pick for a guy, and this is, if we have to have one takeaway from the QB position, this should be it. If I'm paying any sort of a premium, if I don't have like 2 players on my bench before I'm even drafting a quarterback in a single QB league, if the guy doesn't run it, I'm not reaching for him. If he can't get me scoring with his legs, he's just another guy to me, and at that point, I'll just take the next guy. That you mentioned Stafford. You're getting him in like round 11, 12 in a redraft league?
In according to ADP.
Yeah, and in a redraft league.
And right. In my rankings, we're reaching up a little bit to take him.
Well, I don't need to reach. I'm just going to take him
a little bit, because once you get in that
round
range,
11, instead of 12. But you can get this guy. Baker Mayfield is like poison. He's kryptonite. Everybody got hurt with him last year. All new system, new coordinators, actual competency in the coaching staff. He should have a better year. You can get him really late. And if he fails, Ryan Tannehill's available. A whole bunch of, and the rookies. And how about Sam Darnold, Sammy Dizzles? So,
yeah. Sam Darnold, again, I understand the reason for skepticism there. Coach, new receivers, shortened offseason. I love him. By the way, we love Sam Darnold long-term. Dynasty is one of our favorites. He's younger than Joe Burrow. We've heard that a million times. It's true. It's true. So we like, last season I give him an incomplete grade. Sam Darnold, that is, based on the mono, so he looked like he was about to break out before that. And, and by the way, something else that I've thought about as you bring up Sam Darnold is, I'm not going to be as anti-Gase as I once was. And not because I think he's good or anything like that, but just because we just don't know he's bad yet. We just don't. We don't
know he's bad.
We don't know that. We just don't know he's good yet.
Really bad with Miami.
Yes, but in all fairness, he did go 10-6 with Miami this first year. People forget that. He did go 10-6, and then he's by all accounts, he's a weird dude, right? Adam Gase is a weird guy, the taco looking all over, and other players have individually performed once they've left him. But what I'm just saying is
that's scary. That's a scary.
Yeah, that's a scary. But what I'm saying is that was that situation. Then, you also have the Broncos situation when he was there and he did well, and everyone could say, yes, it's Peyton Manning. But what I'm just saying is that this is the season I'm going to make my decision on Adam Gase. But I'm going to be easily persuaded that he's not good. But I just want to.
It feels bad.
It feels bad, but I've said to myself, I'm going to hold off on making that decision. Everything's lined up. Let's see what happens this season. All right. Any others you want to talk about before we call it quits?
Yeah, I'm going to just look at some crazy rankings that you
talking to that mic, man. Talking to that mic.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about some of your personal rankings, and they're a little bit off from ADP, and they're a little crazy to me. So number 1 is you've got Dwayne Haskins ranked not last.
Yeah, I have him at 20. I have him at 20.
Why? What has Dwayne Haskins ever shown you that says he should be ahead of Kirk Cousins, that he should be ahead of Sam Darnold, Rivers, Minshew, Burrow, everybody? He should be last. Or just hanging out with Derek Carr at the end of the list.
Totally great question, and I respect it. And again, you're not going to have to ever take him here. So when Dwayne Haskins got his first opportunity to play, he didn't look like an NFL player. He looked like a deer in headlights. We all agree. That was the lasting impression. All right. By all accounts. Now let's go back to our prospect evaluation on Dwayne Haskins. I had a very high evaluation on him. He had one of the best college seasons of all time. 50 touchdowns his last year there, with Terry McLaurin, who's his wide receiver now. Okay. The last few games, I went and rewatched Haskins. It didn't look bad to me. And I said to myself, okay, a lot of new jobs that I started. The first couple cracks I got at it, I was a little overwhelmed.
Even this
coaching, this job, right? It takes a minute to get in your own. So I took a look at the last 4 games, and it looked all right to me. And now they have Ron Rivera, who's has stabilized the atmosphere. It was a little bit chaotic there. Okay, they've upgraded the weapons. Darius Geis is healthy. I just think that there's enough upside. I mean, he was the consensus QB2 coming out of when he was drafted. And I just think that there's enough upside to reach on someone like Haskins in one quarterback leagues where you can grab a safety net lower just in case it doesn't work out. So that's what I'm saying is, like, even though there's tremendous downside in your one for Haskins, if you reach up and take him, like you just said, you can go back and get Jimmy Garoppolo or Teddy Bridgewater or even Phillip Rivers or Derek Carr, your favorite, later. But if we said this last year, if Dwayne Haskins hits, he has a chance not to be Lamar Jackson, obviously, but he could be that quarterback you get in the 10th round that ends up being 24 points per game. No one thought Ryan Tannehill had it in him, right? Right system, new coach. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm saying it's possible, and it's worth reaching up. In most drafts, he's going in the 15th round.
I want to clarify. When you're saying reaching up, what you're saying is
take him in the 10th.
Listen, you don't have to take in your redraft league. Dwayne Haskins is available with your last pick.
Correct. But if you want to secure it,
what you're saying here though is throw this guy on your bench. You don't really have to waste draft capital to get him, and his upside is, wow, he could surprise and wind up being a useful piece, and maybe he's better than Carson Wentz you took at pick 8.
Now you got what I'm saying, right?
So I just want to clarify because the wording isn't clear. No one's saying, hey, go draft Dwayne Haskins in round 5. No, the guy's ADP is like not drafted. So what you're saying is you put and this is fine. And in two QB leagues, this is the guy that if you waited on QB, you're looking at like him. You're looking at Jason Statham, Jaron Stidham. My guy, I call him Jason Statham. You're looking at like some of these guys like, oh my gosh, I got to play Gardner Minshew as my starting at 2 QB league. So this is just a guy, and all of those are going ahead of Dwayne. Everybody wants everybody but Dwayne Haskins. So the idea here is, listen, in your redraft league, this is just a guy that you would take with your last pick, throw him on your bench. His ADP is crazy. It's like, let me see where it is here. Dwayne has 31. After
31 QB. Wait, hold on. His QB is his ranking. His ADP is QB 31. His ADP is 232, which is undrafted.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. His ranking is 31, meaning he's going after Jameis Winston. People are drafting the backup Jameis Winston ahead of this guy. He's now
bring it back to our discussion on rankings. I have him ranked QB 20. So remember, when you use my rankings, you also need to pay attention to ADP. All I'm saying, and the Geek identified it perfectly, is take a shot on Dwayne Haskins where you need to, especially in 1 QB leagues. He could easily, you can cut, if he doesn't even show a pulse in week 1, if it just shows the same old Dwayne Haskins, cut, no problem. But if he shows a little something in week 1, you may want to hold till week 2. And I'm just saying he's that guy this year who I like, not that is definite, but there's the upside to be a top 7, top 8 QB. It's there.
There it is. A surprise late round pick and a great potential pick as your QB 3.
You don't need them, and you don't need 3 QBs in one.
No, but in a Superflex.
Oh yeah, no, he'll go higher.
A guy who's going to go potentially as a QB 3. In other words, what happens in Superflex leagues is you get your top 24 out, and this guy's below that. So there will be teams that have a third quarterback. Some teams just won't get one. This is like a guy who might end up emerging. Because you're making decisions. Teddy Bridgewater.
Well, let me ask you this, Geek. Let me ask you this. So I mean, if you already have in one QB leagues, if you already have your top 8 QB, if you've already secured, you've already secured Matt Ryan, someone safe and boring, or Aaron Rodgers who's got a little more upside, and you have a deep enough bench where you're looking for a QB2, would you rather take a shot on Haskins or Kirk Cousins? I mean, that's really what I'm asking you here.
I don't know. I think if I had to start the guy, I'd feel safer with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is fine,
but that's not how you win leagues. Being safer, you win leagues.
No, but I mean, I more think of him as the third guy. Like, if you ask me the question, would I rather have him or Teddy Bridgewater?
Sure.
That now you got me thinking. I am not a big Dwayne Haskins. I'm not on the same boat as you. I think he looked like shit last year. I'm not.
Rewatch those last few games though. The last few games he did.
Of course, I watched every game. And he looks good for spells. That happens, though. But we come back, and it's the same team. This is the Drew Lock. You have Drew Lock. You know what? Let me throw one other guy in there.
All right.
Drew Lock. Now, all right. Your ranking, 16, QB 16.
QB
right
16.
Right after Ben Roethlisberger. Okay.
Right. Well, just to give perspective, I have Baker at 13, Matt Ryan at 14, Ben Roethlisberger at 15, and Drew Lock at 16 in my 1 QB rankings. Okay. Believe it or not, my 2 QB rankings, I would push Drew Lock up, and I can explain that at another time.
But consensus ADP has him at QB 22 overall. Now, here's my issue with that. Again, 2 QB league. Everybody's excited. The push-up, you're ahead of... Drew Lock has never shown anything that says he could produce fantasy points at the QB position. He didn't do it at all last season. Now, they added a whole bunch of weapons. I get it. But a lot of these weapons are young. They're rookies. It takes some time for them to develop. I don't see it with Drew Lock. I think there's a lot of risk here for a guy who's never had like a 20-point fantasy game, and he had
against Houston. He had a big game against Houston. He had 25. That was when Noah Fant broke that long run. I mean, I understand, and the key to this is getting ahead of it before it happens. It's forward looking. So when we look at Drew Lock, you have to take a forward looking approach. You have to look at what the team did, and now Drew Lock was a 2nd-round real-life pick for a reason, because teams didn't have faith in him being a locked-in guy. Now, John Elway had the chance to add some very good veteran help. He had the chance to add Cam Newton. He had a chance to add Jameis Winston. He had the chance to draft a quarterback, right? He had all these opportunities. He had a chance to add Andy Dalton if he wanted. He chose to stay with Drew Lock. That says something. That says the team, whether you or I like him or not, the team does. They upgraded all the weapons around him. Everything is set up for Drew Lock to succeed. Now, the reason he's going at QB 20 on ADP and QB 16 with me is because he hasn't done it yet. Had he done it yet, he'd be up there with Carson Wentz. This is how we win the league at quarterback, by taking the guy that all of the circumstances are set up for it. It just hasn't happened yet. And that's when you have to strike, because next year at this time, we're going to be talking about him as QB7 ahead of Russell Wilson.
Let me give you my counterpoint. My counterpoint is, I think that John Elway is really bad at evaluating quarterbacks. I actually think he's been horrific at it. So I think that he thinks that he's smarter than everybody else. And I like John Elway. I think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I think he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, and he's been bad at it. He's shown no propensity to be able to evaluate the quarterback position. And I know it seems crazy. You're like, hey, well, it's fucking John Elway. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. How could you even be saying this, Geek? You're fucking nuts. I'm canceling you from the show. You're out. But don't throw me off. I'm just telling you, the dude, give me one example of a good drafted quarterback from the John Elway era, or even a good pickup. They had Peyton Manning. They had him playing when he was dead.
Well, at that point, it was kissing the ring of the Godfather with Peyton Manning. He'd already,
had. But where has he proven that he knows how to draft a quarterback?
So you could say, all right, so he hasn't so far, and I agree with that. He's missed on 3 or 4 QBs, including
trades. Was Brock Lobster on that team for a minute?
Yeah, Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch. Okay, but wouldn't you say that he's maybe due for a hit? I mean, he doesn't. That's bullshit. Even if you put me up against a, if I'm swinging a bat against a college pitcher, I'm probably going to miss the ball if he's throwing fastballs 89, 95 times out of 100. But there's a chance I can accidentally foul one off.
No, because your entire argument before, now I'm just making a counterpoint. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm making a counterpoint. The entire argument was, hey, the team didn't sign Jameis Winston. They didn't sign Cam. They didn't sign
they believe in him.
Red Rocket. They must believe. But like, what does that mean to me when they fucking proven that they are terrible at evaluating quarterback? Didn't they bring in Joe Flacco? I mean, it's been a nightmare of bad quarterback after bad quarterback on that team.
Here's what I'm saying. Okay, so this doesn't apply to fantasy, but they went 4-1 with him as a starter. Okay, whatever. We all know that. Right.
Irrelevant.
No, not irrelevant. It's enough.
Irrelevant. It's a good running team. They're able to win even with terror. Like, that's not. It's still a good team. The Broncos would be a great team if they had a quarterback.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. Drew Lock, in order to screw this up, they put around Jerry Jeudy. They drafted him, even though he's a rookie, he's as pro ready as they come. I mean, I've told you about that quote that that Lamar Jackson, when they asked him 2 years ago, who do you want to be which wide receivers can we get you as you're going into your first year of starting? And he said, get me Marquise Brown or get me Jerry Jeudy the following year. Jerry Jeudy is a known pro-ready receiver. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be good. All right, you already have Courtland Sutton, who we agree is a top 15, top 18 wide receiver in real NFL. Okay, we know all the weapons. Drew Lock would have to be a well below average quarterback to screw this up. Even if he's average, even if he's just like the 17th best quarterback in the league, he's going to be fine for fantasy. There's too much around him, including Melvin Gordon, who can catch passes, Phillip Lindsay, who can open it up. I'm just saying is that the upgrades are so strong that he would have to be so bad to screw it up for fantasy.
I think that we don't know if he's not so bad.
But aren't you willing to bet on it at 5 spots above ADP?
I just want to say, in my 2 QB league, again, I look at a Drew Lock as the guy I'm really happy to have as my QB3 that I hope, but you can't get him there. So that's the issue for me. When you're making your 2 QB league decision, you're saying, all right, should I take Drew Lock or should I take, I don't know, Kirk Cousins or Ryan Tannehill maybe, or Jimmy Garoppolo. All right.
You're right. Although all those guys go in the same lot, you have to make that decision.
Yeah. Do you want like the consistency, for example, of a Kirk Cousins who is good when they're throwing? Just, that team is willing to run it a lot. I mean, so he doesn't do that much. Or do you want to take a chance with Drew Lock, who should have the team to himself? There's no alternative. He's got weapons all over the place, but can he put it all together? I don't know.
I feel like we have this discussion every year with different QBs. QBs that haven't done it yet. It takes me hammering you a little bit to get you to see it. And you know what? I'm telling you, those guys, they're not locks, no pun, to do it, but we're trying to identify the guys that you can get later. Let's get a little ahead on ADP on them. These are the guys that stood out to me as having a chance to be top 10 QBs. And we're not asking to do anything crazy. And in your 1 quarterback league, we're not asking you, we're just saying draft Dwayne Haskins. Drew Lock, we're saying get him in the 9th round instead of the 12th. We're just saying jump up a little. If you've waited on QB or if in your 2 QB leagues, get it, that these guys have a chance. And if they strike out, listen, you're not going to win the league with Kirk Cousins anyway. Okay. You're going to be the 3rd place team.
I'm going to conclude it here. All right. So here's the deal. I'm going to leave everybody who's listening, who's watching, who's whatever, with this thought. You win your league by understanding what ADP is and pushing certain players above or below that in your rankings to get value or to avoid the bombs. Okay. So when the relevance of a lot of this is you have to compare ADP to the ranking to understand, all right, this is a guy who we're not going to take, not because we think they're terrible, but because they're going higher than where they should. Here's a guy that we're going to grab and have in every fucking league. That's how you win your league, because we're higher on them than everyone else. This has been successful. So
good discussion. I enjoyed that.
And we can have a whole show about that, but that is how you win your league. You have to draft against value, and you have to be better. You have to beat it. So some of this comes back to what you just said. Sometimes that means you have to anticipate a player breaking out that hasn't quite done it yet.
And if you have other guys, Geek, if you listening, you the listener have other guys that just use the philosophy that I just talked about. The Geek is underlining right now. Maybe it's your guy is Sam Darnold. Maybe your guy is someone else. Use what I just said to get ahead of the ADP, as you were just saying.
That's how you win your league. This is how we won our leagues last season, by being on the right guys above their ADP. And again, I won so many leagues last year. It was one of my most successful fantasy seasons ever, because of Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott and Josh Allen and Arlene's. And it's unusual that the QB position is what's propelling a team to win, but that's what did it. So, in leaving you with that, the DFSArmy draft kit, it's live. It's being worked on. It's coming out.
Slow drip.
With the slow drip, we take our time, but we'll have early rankings with everything.
QB ranks are up there, man. QB ranks are up there. Dynasty ranks are up there.
Rookie rankings, a lot of stuff is there. More coming. My part coming soon. Don't wait. Get signed up at DFSArmy.com. It's VIP. You'll get all this info. You can ask start questions in season. All of these great things. You want to win your leagues, this is the way to go. We're doing best ball leagues. We're doing dynasty leagues. Sports haven't fully returned yet. And so it's a lot of fun. NFL will be here this year. And it's a lot of fun right now to get the edge early in these best ball leagues, in the NFFC, in whatever type of high dollar league you're in. NFFC, they're drafting 2 quarterbacks in the first round. That's edge right there. So get signed up at DFSArmy.com VIP. Our next episode will break down the running back position. Everybody's favorite. We're going to go through all the position groups here. These are early rankings. We're going to on this podcast. So make sure you like and subscribe to the Bold Calls Fantasy Football Podcast. If you like this stuff, if you want to win your league, do it. If you don't want to,
let me tell them where. Go into the DFSArmy podcast feed.
Yeah,
that's where the Bold Call podcast lives.
DFSArmy podcast feed. It's on Stitcher. It's on
Apple.
Podbean, it's on Apple iTunes. It's everywhere. It's
Spotify.
On YouTube, Spotify. You got to go to YouTube and like and subscribe to the channel. It'll let you know when we go live. You can ask us a question live during the show. We might not answer it.
I'll answer it.
Sometimes he'll type and answer me. You don't know.
No, I go back. I actually go back after it's over, after we conclude the live, and I go in and answer the question.
I love that. So all the questions are answered. Maybe not live on air.
Right.
But
no, you'll get answered, just not live on air.
This is what we do. Bold calls, like and subscribe. You'll be notified when we go live. And if you want to dominate your fantasy league this year, your best ball league, your dynasty league, whatever it is you're doing, we're going to help you. You're not going to get canned bullshit answers here. You're not going to get some fucking generic rankings. You're going to see bold calls. You're going to see players massively different, as we always do, than their ADPs, because we don't give a fuck about early ADP. This is where we can beat them. And you'll note that those ADPs will come a lot closer to what we're talking about towards the end of the season, because these are plays that are well studied and well thought out. So check it out. Bold calls, like and subscribe, and go to DFSArmy.com. Sign up as a VIP. We will be back next time to break down the running back position for myself. Season long says at Alan Seslowsky.
Yep. And and also, if you're still listening, just go over to Instagram. Give me a follow, AlanFantasyFoottball. I'm starting to build out the Instagram, and the DFSArmy has an awesome Instagram as well. But just like I said, on Twitter at Alan Seslowsky, on Twitter @FFootballGeek, and just head over to Instagram, AlanFantasyFoottball. Give me a quick follow. I'm trying to build that up over there, and I'm putting out some real good content for DFSArmy on my Instagram.
I only post pictures of my cat on my Instagram.
And if you're on TikTok, I'm not bullshitting you here. If you're on TikTok, Alan Seslowsky on TikTok as well.
Again, if you want to see Alan Seslowsky dancing to Carol Baskin, killed her husband, put him in a basket, then you can go to TikTok, where he is doing shirtless dances.
Not true. All right, man. Say goodbye.
Take care, everyone. We'll be back next time breaking down that running back.